Hi everyone! Today we're gonna be repotting our Pilea Peperomioides. So anyways guys, how are you? How is it going with your plants? Recently I bought a few Pileas. One was a really big plant, and that is it. But it was not in a great condition and some of the leaves were falling off. So I decided to put this plant out of the pot, and the soil had this sour smell, and actually I decided to repot it as soon as possible, and I've just took her out of the soil, and most of those roots that she was having, I think so, they're just falling off because they were rotten. I put her in a towel for a while to let her dry a little, and then I sprayed it also. So she's not in a great condition, but I suppose it's better than she has been before. Oh, wow! I mean, wow! I need to show it somehow. I put her in this towel for a while, and you know what? It's kind of true what they say. She's got new babies. So she's been sitting in this towel for 2 days, 2 or 3, right on the root. I'll show you also this on this camera. So I think she likes it better not in the pot, and it's great news. Somehow, I think you can. Great stuff. So, what I need for repotting is, first of all, I need to have something dirty or not, because I'll be throwing away everything that I'm gonna get here. So anyways, yeah, I'm repotting. And I forgot to tell you, so this Pilea, this is a mother plant that I got, a large Pilea, and I got her in a maybe something like 10 centimeter pot, and she had 9 babies. So all in all, I got 10 Pileas actually. So I have a few of them over here. I put them in the water for a while, and they're getting a lot of new roots. Woohoo! I also have those guys that I'm willing to put in bigger planters, because those are kind of really small for them. It seems like they are doing fine here. Yeah, I'm using this egg holder. I have no idea how you're calling this. Here also, really small Pileas, 3 cuttings. Yoo-hoo! So, and while repotting, I want to tell you the history of this really popular plant. Maybe somehow or somewhere you've heard it, but I found the full history of this UFO plant, as I can forget a lot of names and dates. I have this printout, and I will link this article if someone wants to read it properly. But first of all, Chinese money plant. What's that and how it got into Europe? It was a mystery for quite a long time, because a lot of people around Europe, Britain, Norway, Germany, other countries, they had this plant in their houses, and it was really widespread around Europe, but nobody knew how and what kind of plant. So for quite some time, people were addressing inquiry desks in Great Britain, and they were sending the leaves of this plant, this unknown to them plant, to get the name. Scientists could say nothing. Scientists were puzzled, but no one has seen the flower, the inflorescence of this plant, so no one could tell exactly what kind of plant it was. Yeah, and now I'll make a pause and I'll mix in some soil. So, what do I have? I usually use cocoa peat, and I use quite a lot of it in the first place because it gives the soil moisture and fluffiness. So, cocoa peat, I think that's enough. And I have here potting mix that I just bought in the store. But it's really dry, and when it's not even potting mix, it's how do you call it? It's peat. It's really dense, so it doesn't give enough air to the roots. So I don't use a lot of it, just maybe 3-4 spoons. And then I'm just mixing it all well, and I need to feel the soil to tell if it's enough. And also try to show it on the other camera. And then of course I'm adding perlite, which is weightless. Perlite takes away the moisture and gives us a good drainage, which is really great. I'm mixing up everything in here. Back to the story. So as I said, no one could identify this plant, and as everyone, not everyone, as scientists were saying, they cannot identify sterile material. But there was a progress when Mrs. Wolpert in 1978 sent leaves and inflorescence of Pilea Peperomioides to the inquiry desk. And that gave some clues to the inquiry guys. They said that the leaves indeed resembled certain species of Peperomia or Peperaceae family. But the flowers, which is the main cue to identification of any plant, the flowers resembled inflorescences of another family, a stingy family of Erythraceae. Yeah, nettle family. Eventually, a diligent search by the Kew botanist Wessel Moraes, if I say the name correctly, I'm not sure, suggested that the plant was a Chinese species of Pilea, which had been named in 1912 by the German botanist Friedrich Diels as Pilea, which was like in half of the households in Britain. Long story short, the first time when Pilea Peperomioides was collected by the scientists, or okay, by European scientists as far as we know, it was done by George Forrest in 1906, and then again in 1910 in Chang'an Range in China. This range of mountains rises as high as 4,250 meters. Pilea's home is quite high in the mountains. Yeah, that said, a few questions. How did this plant got into Europe and rooted in almost every house without being known? So what's the story behind this plant? How did it get to Europe? Pum, pum, pum. No one knew, but everyone knew how this plant got so popular. Because of those babies, because of the shoots that Pilea gives, and it's so easy to share with your friends, to share with your families. A lot of people were selling them at the church markets or fairs or anywhere, just because, as I said, I bought one pot with Pilea, but I got 10 plants. So the next part of investigation was made by Robert Pearson, who published an illustrated article in the Sunday Telegraph on the 9th January 1983, and he asked if anyone knows the story behind the Pilea Peperomioides and how it got to Europe, to Britain. And they got a few answers, actually, one of which led us closer to the answer of the whole story. It turned out that some family, a family of the side buttons, who lived in St. Mawes in Cornwall, had first acquired the plant some 20 years previously. The family had a Norwegian au pair whose name was Model Wig, and the daughter of those side bottoms traveled to Norway with this au pair for a weekend, where she got this plant from her au pair, apparently, and she got back with this plant, and that's how Britain got Pilea Peperomioides. Bravo! We solved this part. Then, okay, let me see if I can fit our Pilea into this pot, or should I give her a bigger pot, or should I use a bigger one? I always have problems with if they're the same. Maybe I should use a bigger one to give her some space to shoot the babies. I think, yeah. First of all, what I need to do is to take away the sticker. Stickers. And what I like to do when I'm repotting or potting by myself is adding a few rocks on the bottom of the pot just to give it a better drainage. I have some marble rocks, and those are not washed, but let me get a few washed. Yeah, washed rocks, because those are having a lot of dust in them, so I prefer to wash. So here I have the rocks, and I put them at the bottom of our pot, but first of all I'm putting some larger rocks in the middle, not to let the soil fall off the planter. I did it, and I'll show it there. Hopefully you can see everything. And right now I'll put a few spoons inside of our pot, like that, and then I'm gonna see. It's alright, I think, yeah. I'm just gonna put the soil into carefully. So, the next part. Now we know how Pilea got into Great Britain, but it's not the whole story. How it got to Scandinavia or Norway, actually. That's the question. What was surprising is that all the botanists that were visiting Britain botanic gardens, they had no clue what kind of plant it is, and they've never seen it. Except when Dr. Lars Kers of the Bergius Botanic Garden in Stockholm, who then realized that the unknown plant he was growing in his house, after visiting the Kew Herbarium in Britain, he understood that it was Pilea Peperomioides. This Dr. Lars Kers, he was actually from Sweden. Then he decided to study Swedish horticultural literature for further information, but to no avail. And the next thing that he has done was a really smart step. I don't know why no one else had done this before. He presented this plant on a television in one, I don't know, they don't say what kind of TV program it was, but it was some popular Swedish television program. So he presented this plant, and somehow he wanted to know what kind of story was behind this plant, and maybe someone knew something. The result was really mind-blowing. They got some 10,000 letters, and amongst all of those letters, a very extraordinary story came up. Turned out that a Norwegian missionary, Agnar Espegren, brought the plant to Norway from China in 1946. In 1944, the Norwegian missionaries in China had to leave. So Agnar Espegren and his family, then living in Yunnan province, were taken by an American plane to Kunming in Yunnan, where they stayed about a week awaiting further transport to India. So during this brief stay in Kunming, which is only 150 miles away from the East Dali range, Mr. Espegren obtained a live specimen of a plant, possibly from a local market, and packed it in a small box, which then brought together with his family and all the baggage to Calcutta, where they lived for a year. And then their family arrived back to Norway, and somehow this plant still survived, so they got back with Pilea. They got to Norway with Pilea. So that was the first Pilea that traveled from China to Europe. And that's how Pilea got so popular in Scandinavia. So Mr. Espegren gave a lot of the shoots from this plant to all of the friends and guys, and that's how this plant was effectively distributed through Scandinavia. Also from Norway, the plant was spread to Sweden, England, and no doubt elsewhere, and it was called missionary plant because of Agnar Espegren, and it's one of the names of this plant. So we know Chinese money plant, or missionary plant, or UFO plant, or pancake plant, maybe something else. Can't say. Yeah, I did it. It's not looking great yet, I mean, because my Pilea was lying in the handkerchief for quite a long time, for 3 days I think, and it obtained a strange shape also, and it has been lying on its side, so that's why I have this part here somehow naked. Yeah, but I'll just put this naked side to the sun, so everything's gonna be alright, because Pilea tends to grow where the sun is, tends to grow the leaves where the sun is, so it's better to rotate the plant when it's standing in one place so it will be three-dimensional, I would say. Otherwise it will be only on one side, like I have it here right now. You can see it, but it's my fault. It's my fault.
Well, now we only live in concrete buildings, and it may seem that we have nothing to see and feel. Bright lights, bounce outside our minds. But will you come with me to plant new seedlings and keep our minds inside?